Good morning, children. Today in English in class 11, we continue the lesson "We Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together." And yesterday we had just stopped where the narrator, the author, that is, he had taken charge of the wheel. But from his experience, he could make out that there was a lot of water collected inside the boat, but he did not leave the wheel, because if he abandoned the wheel, probably they would have lost complete control over it. So he waited, and now we see that his wife Mary appeared on the deck. Suddenly, the front hatches, the door leading to the deck, was thrown open, and Mary appeared. "We're sinking," she screamed. So he was waiting for somebody or the other, and now his wife Mary appeared, and now she came and told him. She came and announced that they are sinking. In other words, that there is a lot of water collected inside the boat. She screamed means she shouted in panic. "The decks are smashed. We are full of water." Smashed means broken. That means there's so much of damage there, and there's so much of water collected inside. So she came in a state of panic and told her husband about it. "Take the wheel," I shouted. So he instructed her to take wheel. That means to take charge of the wheel. And he says, "As I shouted as I scrambled for the hatch." That is, he ran, because there was not a single moment that he could waste now. So as soon as he saw Mary there, he gave her the charge of the wheel, and he ran down to see what damage has taken place, and also to see if the children were safe or not. What he saw was Larry and Herb were pumping like madmen. Larry and Herb were the two sailors, the crewmen. They were pumping, that is, they were trying to pump the water out of the boat and throw it out into the sea, like madmen. That means as desperately, as quickly, and as swiftly as they could. He says, "The whole starboard side bulged inwards." That is, the right side of the boat. Bulge means actually to swell. So, because of the impact of the gigantic wave, that is what he got to see. And what he saw was that in the water that had collected inside the boat, there were clothes, there were crockery, charts, tins, and toys sloshed about in deep water. That means they were moving about in the water noisily, or making a noise. So this is what he saw, that that is, Larry and Herb did not wait for instructions to be given, but they started that pumping of the water immediately. I half swam, half crawled into the children's cabin. Naturally, his first worry and concern were the children, so he wanted to see if they were okay. "So, are you all right?" I asked. "Yes," they answered from an upper bunk. And when he questioned his children, he came to the cabin and asked the children that they are all right. So they answered in the affirmative, that yes, they were all right. And he says, "But my head hurts a bit." That is Suzanne, the daughter. She said that she has hurt her head, and that is what is paining her, that is what is hurting her. Said Sue, that is Suzanne, pointing to a big bump above her eyes. So she had a bumped head, and that is what she complained to her father when he asked her. I had no time to worry about bumped heads. Now here we see that it is an emergency, it is a critical situation, and as when he was satisfied that the children were okay, no doubt that Suzanne was injured, that she had a bumped head, but his priority was to save the boat and their lives. So that is what he says at that point of time. I had no time to worry about bumped heads. It does not mean that he was not concerned about his daughter or her injury, but for him it was more important to investigate and also to try to save the boat and everybody's life. After finding a hammer, screws, and canvas, whatever that he would need to cover the holes which had been formed, so he says that he carried all that along with him so that he could repair wherever it was possible. I struggled back, came back with difficulty on the deck. with the starboard side bashed open. Star is the right side, bashed open. Bashed means open, that means it had been broken. We were taking water. Taking water means more water was entering the boat with each wave that broke over us. That meant with every wave that struck against the boat, more and more water was collecting inside the boat. If I could not make some repairs, we would surely sink. That means it was such a critical situation that he, as soon as possible, he had to make the repairs. If he did not do that, there would be their survival would not be possible. That is, the boat would sink, and naturally all on that boat would also be drowned. Somehow, I managed to stretch canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers across the gaping holes. So he said, despite the adverse conditions, the canvas which he had carried, he covered that. Then waterproof hatch covers, that meant so that the water would not enter. So enter the boat and collect inside. Gaping big holes, huge holes. Some water continued to stream after the repairs had been made. Some water continued to enter the boat, but most of it was now, he said, that most of it was now being deflected. That means the direction had changed, it was moved away. Deflected means moved away. So that is what happened because of the repairs which he had undertaken. More problems arose. Now, problems multiply. Similarly, the same happened with them as well. More problems arose when a hand pump started to block up with the debris floating around the cabins and the electric pump short-circuited. He said, more problems, that means complications increase for them, difficulties increase for them. How? That the hand pumps, by means of which they were able to pump the water out of the boat and throw it back into the sea, now it got blocked. Why it got blocked? Because in the water that had collected inside, there were a lot of things that we talked about. The clothes were there, crockery, charts, tins and all, and the toys of the children. So because of all that, that is how the pump got blocked and it stopped working. And also the electric pump short-circuited. That means that there was electric defect and therefore the pump also stopped functioning. That meant that the pumps, one had got blocked, the other one got short-circuited. So both their pumps were not functioning now. So they were not able to pump the water out. So it says, debris means the broken pieces of material. Here naturally what is floating in the water were the toys, crockery, tins and all. So because of all that, it had got blocked. The water level rose threateningly. Now when the pump stopped working, when it was not functioning, obviously it was a major difficulty for them now that there was more water accumulated or collected inside the boat. He says further that back on deck, I found that our two spare pumps had been wrenched overboard. And when he got back onto the deck, he saw that the two spare hand pumps, they had equipped themselves well enough. They had carried surplus also, just in case the pumps stopped working. But unfortunately, they had, because of the wave which had hit the boat with so much of intensity, that it was not possible for him. It was not possible for them to save all that, and all that was wrenched. Means it got removed. It got pulled and it was thrown into the sea. So that meant that they did not have any of these spares. Along with the forestay sail, that is the big front sail that we have, the jib, he says, and the dinghies and the main anchor. Dinghies are small boats which can be used during an emergency. When there's an emergency or situations like this, it could be used, but even they had lost that also. An anchor, of course, is made out of a heavy metal object used to keep the ship fixed in a place. So a lot of their spares which they had carried along, they had equipped themselves well, they had carried all this, but unfortunately all had been pulled and thrown and they had lost all that. Then I remembered we had another electric pump under the chart room floor. That is, they had a room where they kept all the maps and all in order to see the direction and make all the calculations. So he just remembered that there was one electric pump which was there under the floor. I connected it to an out pipe. So he went and got that, and he connected that to an out pipe, that is, so that the drainage pipe through which the water could be pumped out. And was thankful to find that it worked. And he was so glad, he was so relieved that thankfully that electric pump worked well and they were able to continue to pump the water out of the boat. The night dragged on with an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, steering, and working the radio. Since the night dragged on, that meant it seemed the night would never come to an end. A night full of misery, such a big challenge that they were faced with, such an ordeal, they were in such a crisis. So, this disastrous situation, it seemed as if the night was not coming to an end. Bitterly cold, obviously, is extremely cold. So, the entire night they spent pumping water out, trying to maintain control over there, over the boat, and working the radio. Working, that means trying to transmit messages, so that if they could get connected, if they could send a message somewhere, somebody could get connected, then it would be possible for them to get some kind of assistance. They could get some kind of help, so that they kept on trying to do that also. We were getting no replies to our Mayday calls. Mayday calls are distress calls. So, unfortunately, they kept on trying, of course, to make their distress calls or these Mayday calls, but they were not able to establish contact with anybody at all, which was not surprising in this remote corner of the world. And he says that it was not surprising. Why? Because they were so far away from the rest of the world. It was a remote corner, and because of that, perhaps they were not able to get connected. They were not able to transmit any message. They were not able to convey to anybody that they are in such distress and that they needed help. But no help was coming. Sue's head had swollen alarmingly, that means threateningly. She had two enormous black eyes, and now she showed us a deep cut on her arm. So her bumped head, now it had become more swollen, and her eyes had also, one can say that she had enormous, huge black eyes, and she showed other cuts, a deep cut on her arm. When I asked why she hadn't made more of her injuries before this, she replied, I didn't want to worry you when you were trying to save us all. The patience of the girl is remarkable. That meant that she had only at that point of time complained about the bumped head, that it pained, it hurt her, and other injuries on her arm, and now she showed it to her father. And when her father asked that why she had not mentioned about these injuries, she felt that her father was busy in saving their lives. That was more urgent and that was more important. Thank you.